One king of the North is supposed to be coming home. Another has just been waived. Toronto's old royal family has aged, and each king is showing us a different way to grow old. Kawhi Leonard's story is about the possibility of returning to the scene of a championship. DeMar DeRozan's is about what happens when a player remains good enough to help, but no longer fits easily into the way teams want to win. At 36, DeRozan is still a legitimate isolation scorer. He can give you the mid-range pull-up, carry a large on-ball burden, and keep the offense from falling apart. His efficiency is still respectable for a specialist whose favorite shot is the one modern offenses keep trying to delete. Compared with the physical decline of other stars from his generation, DeRozan has aged surprisingly well. The problem is not that he can no longer play. The problem is that his particular type of game creates such a narrow path to winning that a team may have to sacrifice real competitiveness just to feature him. That is the contradiction at the center of his career. Over the last decade, there is probably only one other star who lived inside that contradiction more intensely: Russell Westbrook. Westbrook leaned into chaos years ago. His burst could crack open a defense, collapse the paint, and drag a team up the floor before the defense had finished organizing itself. His regular season playmaking was real. DeRozan cannot do that. He does not have the same downhill force, and he does not turn every possession into a foot race. But what DeRozan offers is control. Fewer wild swings, fewer possessions that leave everyone covering their eyes. That reliability is his advantage over Westbrook. It is also why he can still function as a late clock release valve and give a playoff-hungry team a credible half-court creator. If you are building for a deep playoff run, you probably do not want DeRozan as the foundation. But if your urgent need is simply to get back into the postseason and keep the offense respectable, he can be a useful transitional piece. That is the ceiling, though. Transitional. You can imagine Devin Booker or Jamal Murray taking over a playoff series and carrying an offense through a round. You do not really imagine that with DeMar DeRozan. He does not have the physical tools. The burst, the lateral quickness, the ability to hold his position through contact, none of it is quite good enough anymore. And the skill package that might compensate for those limitations is incomplete too. The three-point shot remains unreliable. His off-ball movement is almost non-existent. There is no quick trigger jumper flowing into space, no instinct to relocate and punish a defense when the ball leaves his hands. That off-ball inertia puts a hard cap on his playoff value. His defense also cannot erase the structural limits of a two-guard team, which is the kind of roster that usually has to surround his on-ball role. Move him down to a third option, and to his credit, DeRozan has said he would accept that role even for less money, and you still run into the same problem. Watch him without the ball, and you start looking for the spacing, the cutting, the small movements that make a possession easier for everyone else. They are usually not there. We have used the phrase the Karl-Anthony Towns dilemma before. A player who feels too limited to be your best player, but too narrow to be a comfortable second option. He gets stuck in the middle, and that middle is where roster construction goes to become a group project. DeMar DeRozan is the perimeter version of that dilemma. In some ways, it is even harsher for an outside player. A shooting big man can create off-ball gravity simply by standing in the right place. If you use him correctly, he can bend a defense without touching the ball. DeRozan does not provide that automatic pull. Without the ball, his influence shrinks dramatically. For analysts, that makes DeRozan almost too convenient. He has become a human measuring stick. If you want to talk about skill thresholds, athletic ceilings, or role definition without hiding behind vague comparisons, you can place another perimeter player next to DeMar DeRozan, and the picture usually gets sharper. By the second season after the Leonard DeRozan trade, that comparison was already becoming hard to avoid. In the years since, DeRozan has remained a useful reference point for what a high-volume, non-shooting wing can and cannot unlock. That is not a criticism of his character. It is an honest description of the shape of his game. And for DeRozan himself, there is something sad about becoming such a reliable measuring unit. None of this is an attack. I have real affection for his career. His professionalism deserves respect. Within the limits of his talent, he has squeezed almost everything possible out of his technical skill set. We still do not fully understand why his three-point shot and off-ball game stopped developing the way his on-ball craft did. But the commitment to mastering what he could control is obvious, and that part of his career should not be dismissed, just because the league eventually moved away from his preferred style. The paradox is that these type-related problems become easier to tolerate when the price drops. A max salary DeRozan is a contract most teams would avoid. At around $20 million a year, he still needs a very specific roster context to avoid becoming a difficult fit. But if he is available for the mid-level exception or even the biannual exception, his baseline production suddenly becomes very attractive. Under the current salary cap system, teams are increasingly willing to spend their middle-class money on size and athleticism. That makes a proven half-court scorer who can still create a shot look more valuable, even if his limitations remain obvious. So DeRozan will have suitors. He is still useful. He is still skilled. He is still capable of giving a team a few possessions in a playoff game that nobody else can create. But he is not quite a destination anymore. He is a bridge between good and great, between useful and difficult to play, between a team trying to get somewhere and a team that has already arrived. The question is not whether DeMar DeRozan can still score. He can. The question is whether a team can give that scoring a home without making the rest of the roster pay for it. That is why DeRozan remains valuable and why he remains so difficult to fit.